Yeah, we just need
What
to
is
click
this about?
pause it here and stop is here.
Okay, fine. Okay.
Yes.
Recorded. No?
Yes.
Okay, welcome to focus group discussion on the different digital payment methods. So we would be discussing today about uh, under what circumstances people would prefer a certain digital payment method and what is generally their general preference for digital payments. Okay. Um, So we will get started with Sohil. So Sohil, can you tell us which is the most preferred digital payment which you use in day-to-day transactions and why?
Thank you, sir, for giving us an opportunity to discuss this topic. Now, if we see the type of method which I usually prefer is the UPI method. One reason is that of the last 3 4 years when the UPI has been implemented, we see that we have stopped carrying our wallets to the marketplace. Like so, we only carry our cell phones. But that has also turned out to be a limitation because for any transaction to take place, there have to be two parties. And though the UPI payment is accepted in the metros and even the tier 2 cities, in tier 3 cities, we usually see that still people prefer to have cash with them. And particularly those sellers who are still following the traditional method of selling products, they always want their first transaction to always happen in cash. So these are some of the instances where I was not carrying cash, so I had to come back. So these are some of the challenges which we are facing even in using the digital payments.
Okay.
Thank you, Professor. I am Akshay Hegde. So my most preferred way of payment is credit card UPI payment, meaning that nowadays we are having this UPI, the credit cards that could be linked with the UPI, and we can pay through that. Majorly I use it, like I'm using it since last 2 years. The reason why I prefer this method is it gives me control over the payments, and it gives me the list of transaction and everything in a report manner end of the month. And 90% of the vendors are accepting this method. And also it gives me an help me to analyze my monthly spendings and also help me to defer my payments by 1 month, that the as per the standard finance rule that try to delay your payments and collect fast. So from that perspective it makes sense. And also one more reason is that I know what exactly is my spending for the entire month these days on an average, and that's why I prefer to use the credit card UPI to have the financial discipline.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. So here I would want to say that I usually prefer two digital payment methods. So in normal circumstances, I use UPI, but in large establishments like petrol bunks or other institutions like the grocery shoppers, so here I would usually use debit cards. So in petrol bunks, it is mainly because of the reward points that I would get through making the payments through the debit cards. And in grocery shopping, it is mainly due to the ease of the use there. And I have had some bad experiences with regards to UPI in these grocery marts where the payment does not go through with the UPI. So I would prefer in debit cards. With regards to small vendors, I've seen that there are many small vendors who sell vegetables as well as other groceries who use UPI, even though they are roadside vendors. So now the UPI penetration has happened to such an extent that we can easily go about with no cash. Although it has its limitations with regards to the privacy and the cyber security aspects, but overall UPI payments are what is preferred now.
Thank you, sir. Myself, Sneha Joseph. I use a combination of this UPI as well as credit card. The reason I'm particularly focusing upon is the value of payment. If it is less than 1,000 rupees, I mostly prefer to use this UPI. And I will have a fixed amount of money in my savings bank in order to make these UPI payments. And if it is large amount of payments, like if it is for a purchase of a phone, or if it is some Amazon shopping, like about 1,000 rupees, then I will go for credit card. It is the main reason because we are getting a 1 month period in order to pay back these credit card bills, where I am focusing upon the time value of money. We can roll that amount into some other things. So that is why. So mainly I am focusing upon the value of my transaction in order to choose which mode of payment I want to use, whether it is UPI or credit card. And again, coming to this UPI, the most problem I'm facing is in because this network issues. If this network is not proper, or if suddenly suppose our recharge is expired and we are not knowing about it, this UPI won't work. So in that case, we should have some cash in order to make it. So we can't completely rely on UPI for this small transaction, especially with small vendors. So this is my take.
Okay. Uh, Now, I want all of you to think about a hypothetical situation, uh, or it might be true also sometime later. Let's say you visit any place outside India, okay? Under such circumstances, what is your preferred way of doing any transaction?
Sir, if you ask me my preference, it would always be the debit card or the credit card in that case, because only one or two countries are there which are trying to have UPI, that too on a trial basis. So UPI has not been that much successful out of India. So in such cases, it's always better to go for the debit cards or the credit cards. Now, when we are talking about using cards, again, we see that there are mainly two players. One is the MasterCard, second one is the Visa. To overcome that, the Indian government came with one card called as the RuPay card also. But that too had a lot of limitations, because the RuPay card is again acceptance in most of the countries outside India is limited. That's the reason if any person is planning to go abroad, he needs to see to it that the card that he gets is not a RuPay card. It has to be either the MasterCard or the Visa card, because that is again one of the limitations.
Okay.
Professor, in the past also, and also if I'm in a situation where I'm traveling abroad, I would always use the credit card as a payment in most of the airports or anywhere I'm outside India. Because as Sol rightly said, that UPI adoption is very limited, and another option I see is that, like, it's not feasible to have every local country's bank account as a go. It takes a lot of time to open a bank account there locally. And another option I would prefer is forex cards. I would load some money in the forex card here in India while traveling abroad. I would use forex card because that would save some money for me in terms of uh, the foreign exchange or other charges that banks and the credit card will usually levy. So that's why I would use forex and mix of credit card depending on the situations.
So I would like to point out to one of the trips that I had exactly 2 years ago to Bhutan. So while we were making all the preparations, we got to know that the debit cards that we were currently having were not working in Nepal and Bhutan. So all four of us were using cards and three of us had, two of us had RuPay, and one had Mastercard and one had Visa. But as they were issued in India, they were not enforceable in Nepal and Bhutan. So what the workaround was, we had to carry cash. So for the good duration of 5 days, we were mostly transacting with cash. As Bhutanese currency and Indian currency was very similar in terms of the exchange rate, it was not much of a problem for us. But at the last leg of our trip, we were at a crunch of cash. So at that time, we thought that it would have been good if we had any other mode of payment. So we had to go back into our reserves, and we had to essentially go take out a loan, sort of a loan from our guide, who was very willing to give out that loan, and we paid him back as soon as we came back to India. So that was one thing that we'll face while going abroad.
Okay, I just want to add on this. It depends upon our journey. For example, if we are going for a job visit, or if it is a leisure trip, it depends upon, and the persons where like if we are visiting our relatives, then again this mode of payment differs. We will depend more on their relatives, because they are mostly engaged with that particular country. So we will depend upon. At the same time, if it is a job visit and we are alone, I mostly prefer this credit card only. I have tried for credit card. Otherwise, a mix of cash as well as the credit card I used to. I have never tried with this UPI.
Okay. So, if I have to ask you about uh, the relative benefits of UPI over the cards, whether it is credit card or debit card, what it could be?
UPI is one of the things that has made people forget their wallets. But I pointed out in the earlier discussion also that it also has its own disadvantages. The other disadvantages that was pointed out is that availability of internet, which again some of them might not be using, and problem of the exact happening of the transaction sometimes get blocked or sometimes it fails. So again, there's a confusion in such cases what to do. It has its own limitations also, because sometimes the amount get cut, but the other person does not receive the money. And in case such things happens, it's always difficult to understand as to what needs to be done. And also in some of the cases, UPI payment, though it was used, it has eliminated the concept of chain system, is what I feel. Because initially, when we used to go to shops to purchase some items, the shopkeeper used to round it off by giving us some toffees or chocolates. Now that system has been eliminated to some extent, because we can give him the exact amount like. But the other side of the thing is that some of the shopkeepers don't accept UPI payments if they are in smaller denominations, because they say that it's difficult for them to track in their bank accounts as well. And these are some of the limitations of UPI even today. Thank you.
One like few major benefits of UPI are like uh, previously we had to carry wallet separately with cash or cards uh, and mobile separately, but now we just carry our mobile phone. It can do the payment stuff for us. So it's more hassle free, I would say. And the second point is that let's take the example of Google Pay or PhonePe. We have all the transaction history there, so it also acts as a proof of payment for anything. Like if you pay on something, then they can't say that you have not paid me on something. There will be an actual digital receipt that I have paid to a particular person. So these are the major advantage I see from the UPI.
So the other day, I think on Saturday, I went to a canteen and I had just ordered some food and was eating. And then later, when it came to the time of the transaction, I had stored the UPI ID of the vendor into my phone. So I just clicked on it and sent him the money, as it was stored long before. So one of the caveats is that although it is stored beforehand, the vendor might have changed the UPI ID, which here the same case had happened. So when the amount was not read out aloud, the transaction was not read out aloud. So I became a bit of skeptical whether the payment had gone through or not. Then I just inquired with the vendor if he had any other IDs, so which we linked to some other mobile phone. Then it turned out that the ID that I had was linked to his son's phone, which apparently he was not using so much, and the transactions were not recorded duly. And then when he inquired back, so this was one. Although yes, UPI has revolutionized the payment system. Sometimes this becomes a pitfall as well.
And UPI is kind of it can first of all it's instant transactions like everyone told, but then it works. For example, you don't have to go to the bank or something. It works even on holidays, and it's relatively secure because there is two-factor authentication most of them use. That is your mobile device and the PIN and everything. And there is relatively low cost. So most of them give you free of charge services, and it is cost effective for the merchants and also to the users. And you can pay bills, you can book gas facilities, I mean like your cylinders or anything. You can make donations, you can buy insurance, you can apply for loans, making use of UPI. And it has also formalized the small scale economic activity. That is, where we used to pay cash to the street vendors or something. Like someone told that they used to round it up the figures. So it is, you can in UPI you can also pay the decimals which are remaining in that rounding or anything. So it has kind of encouraged cashlessness and it has formalized the small scale sector. It has bought into the economic brain, the small scale sector. But of course, there are disadvantages or cons to it. That is, you have transaction limits are there, like high value transfers is not possible. Then of course the security glitches are there and some people get confused. Like if there is a phone pay thing with the user and the vendor is having Paytm or something, then they get confused whether my phone pay will work. So they ask the people and whether so it's kind of confusing to new users, to old people or even to foreigners who come who want to use it. Then of course there is spam, fraud and everything. So these are some of the disadvantages. And if your phone connection is not working, internet connections or your smartphone is not working, if the battery goes down and if you're not carrying cash, it's a trouble. So using UPI.
Okay, thank you, Namita.
So there is advantages and disadvantages with UPI. For example, for UPI, there is some instant cashbacks are there. That is mostly the people look forward. At the same time, nowadays, the cyber fraud associated with the UPI, it is not at all sorted out from our government side. So it is easy to manipulate the people to get through this UPI fraud, and the recovery of the amount that lost through UPI is not recoverable also. So that is the biggest disadvantage our system is facing now. And the other thing is, if we are using credit card, there is a 2% merchant fee is there. So some merchants, they will take that 2%. Actually, it is to be paid by the merchant, but these people, they will take us from only. So that kind of charges are not there with this UPI. And the other thing I just want to add with the Sohil is, like for this UPI payments, if it is a 152 rupees, it's a payment. If it is cash, then vendors sometimes will give discount, just round it as 150. But if it is UPI, we have to give the full amount as such. So no such a small discounts used to initially give by the vendors is not at all seen in nowadays because of this UPI payments. So that's.
So here I will remember one anecdote that I think probably for 7 or 8 years ago this had happened. So the toll charge for the airport at that time was around 45 rupees. So the taxi driver used to give 50 rupees and he used to get 5 rupees chocolate as return. So after 9 trips, he had 9 chocolates and he did not have anyone to give it to. So when he went to the 10th trip, he gave all the toffees back and said, "This is a payment." although the toll authorities did not take it, saying that it is not a valid form of payment, but he argued that you give me the same thing on a regular basis, and I have kept it the same way, and you should accept it. Which with UPI is what we can say is may not happen.
Okay. So thank you everyone for this wonderful focus group discussion. Thank you.